Welcome back, guys. So this is going to be another video on forex trading. I'm just going to be teaching you the fundamentals as well as some few topics. Okay, I want you guys to observe something here, very crucial when you're trading forex. If you're to draw your zone here, this is the first of all my zone that I have identified, and I've seen that in the past price came to this zone, okay, and then afterwards we had another sharp fall. Okay, so this was a sharp fall that we had. Okay, that means that anything beneath this price level is good for sales. Anything that was underneath at this price level was good for sales. So in the future, if price has the ability to go underneath this zone, okay, I'm looking for sales. As simple as that. You don't have to complicate stuff. Anything below this zone is good for sales. So if price comes underneath this zone, I'll be looking for sales. So in most of the cases, what you can do, even you can simply just put an alert at this level. So it will be at 0.87675. okay, you put an alert there so that if price goes underneath this level, you want to be in the market and you trade this market all the way down. Okay, as simple as that. You don't have to complicate your trading with so many indicators, so many channels. No, just look at the impulsive move, the corrective move, and then the continuation. This is ICC in the simplest form. Okay, ICC is attributed to Trades by Sai. Okay, you can find him on YouTube and other channels, even Instagram. But yeah, that's it. All that we are looking for. All that we are looking for. Okay, so all we are looking for, let me just show you so that you guys can understand. If price has been moving up, okay, if we had it an uptrend, okay, an uptrend, something like this, we copy. Okay, so this candle is also moving higher. Okay, we are moving higher. So anything above anything above this level is good for buys, because price has shown you currently that in the previous levels, whenever price was above that zone, we are in for buys. So even if price comes and falls all the way down here, it collects liquidity. What we are always looking for is for price to come above that same zone. Then you can take your entries to even have a continuation move. Okay, as simple as that. That's what we are looking for when you're trading the ICC method. Okay, so first of all, close out the indicators so that I can show you exactly what I mean. So let's go to the H1, because that's a time frame that's very good for these entries. Okay, so on the H1, what do you expect to see? So we saw that this was the previous market low. Okay, so this was the previous market low, and then price came and made a new lower low. Okay, so this was the new lower low that price made. Then after that, what did price do? We had another push upward to create a new lower low. Okay, so in all these levels, what you're looking for is for price to break the old high, and then after that break, you want to see price come and make a liquidity grab before we have this massive push to the upside. You see that price here broke above this previous high. Okay, and then what happened next? We had a push to the downside to create some liquidity, and then afterwards, once price came all the way back into above this level, we should have taken our buys at this area. Same thing happened here. Price created this high. Okay, what did we expect? We expected that if price goes above this level, we are good for buys. So we collected liquidity, and then after some time, what did price do? Price pushed higher. Okay, so this is basically the uptrend, but all you have to do is just wait for your confirmation. Okay, so what did we see here? Price collected liquidity, continued higher. Same thing here. Price came here, collected liquidity, made a small pullback. Okay, and then afterwards we had another massive push to the upside. Okay, what same thing that's happening over here? If you observe to this area here, what do you observe? Anything above that level is good for buys. Okay, so price pushed through the level, which was good, and then afterwards we had a massive liquidity grab. Okay, so price came all the way down and created liquidity And the moment price went above this level, we are looking to take our entries for buys again, so that we can capitalize on this move. What happened? Price failed to make a new higher high. Instead, it made a new lower low. So this was an indication, okay, that price could not surpass the previous higher high, the first indication, okay. So we know that anything after I get this new high low, we want to first of all now get a new lower low. So this was the previous zone. So anything, we say that anything that goes underneath this zone is good for sales. So price came, took out the previous, failed to break the previous high. It made another continuation to the downside, and then this pullback took out this higher high, okay. As you can see, price took out this high high. But again, what's the overall picture? We want to see price take out this previous higher high so that we can have an entry. But what does it do? It fails again. So given that failure, the second time price again came and went underneath this zone here, okay. So price had the momentum to go underneath this zone, okay. So after the price went underneath this zone, what did we expect? We wanted to see if price can potentially continue lower, okay. So anything below this zone is good for sales, as simple as that. What did we see? Anything below this zone is good for sales into infinity. Anything below that zone is good for sales, and that's where price is currently at, okay. We have analyzed from the previous day's perspective. Now we are going to the higher time frames, okay. So let me explain a bit further. So you saw that we said that anything above this level is good for buys, okay. What did price do? Whenever price went above that level, we had buys. Whenever price went above that level, we had buys. Whenever price went above that level, we had buys. So this is a good area for price to take buy entries from, because previously it has shown that it has good buying power, okay. There are buyers in the market at that area, so we expect price to push higher, okay. And also, if you observe, anything underneath this zone is good for sales. So whenever price comes underneath this zone, we are going to look for sales, as simple as that. Then, given all that information, what do we want to see now? We want to see market structure. What is market structure telling us? Well, if you observe market structure, this was a low, okay, and then this was a high, okay. This was a high and this was a low, and then what did price do? Price came and created a new higher high, but it never surpassed the previous high anyways, and then we created a new lower low. So this is a downtrend market, okay. So price came here and then created a new lower low, okay. And anything underneath this zone is good for sales. Anything underneath this zone is showing us that price is bearish, okay. So this is what we call a liquidity grab. We're just grabbing liquidity in this consolidation move to the upside, and we know that if price fails to break the previous high, which was around here, this higher low, then we are likely to have a continuation move to the downside. But to confirm this continuation move to the downside, all we have to do is wait for price to come underneath this level here, so that we can take better entries, okay. We have a higher winning rate when we take entries based off of this. So what do? We set if you set your stop, you set your entry at around that area there. That's what you're looking for. You're taking your entries after price breaks that zone there. So it's very crucial that you take your entries based off of that. Then if I draw my horizontal line here, so that I can see well, what do you see? So at 0.87705 is a good area for price to take buys, as simple as that. Then anything above this zone here, I want to see a reaction. So if price comes and takes out this high here, I want to see market now start making a continuation, okay, a continuation pattern, as simple as that. So that's it for Euro USD, Euro JPY, GBP, sorry, not JPY, Euro GBP, and we're expecting price to push higher in the next coming days, okay. Another example is here. So what do we expect? We see market structure. This was the previous low, okay, then this was the previous high, okay, simple as that. This was the previous low, this was the previous high, then price pushed higher to create a new higher high, okay. We had the breakout structure here, then price continued higher, And then at this climax, so this was the pinnacle of this upward momentum. Okay, so what did we see here? Here we saw an indication that price can potentially start reversing. Why? Because we went underneath the previous low. Okay, so anything underneath this zone here is good for sales. That is what we are seeing from the market. The market is telling us that anything underneath that zone, above this zone which I've marked here, is good for sales. Anything underneath that zone is good for sales, and anything underneath this zone is also good for sales. So if you miss the first entry above, you can always take the second entry below. As simple as that. Okay, but I don't know if you can observe how this idea plays out even into the future. You see that even when price broke underneath this zone, we had another selling momentum. This was a crash. Okay, we had another crash. Okay, because previously we saw that price, whenever it went underneath this low, there was a lot of selling pressure. So whenever price also came underneath this same low, we had another massive crash to the downside. Okay, as simple as that. Then if you go to the low time frame, for people who trade in the M15, you can go to the M15 and I show you the same thing. We can remove all the drawings so that you can have a clear picture. So if you observe, go on your charts on the M15, what do you observe? Well, I'll show you. I've given you a simple example here. We have price forming. This was a previous higher low. Okay, and then this was a lower low. Okay, and then this was a let me just copy and paste. This was the previous higher low. Okay, and then price made a new lower low around here. So these are just simple examples that you can always put into consideration when you're trading. Okay, so this was the previous low, then we had a previous low there, then we had a break of this. Anything below this level is good for sales, and what do we see? Anything that went above it was good for buys. Okay, so this is an indication in price. But let's say price took out this area and you missed the entry. What did you wait to see? Well, you can say, for instance, that anything above this previous high is good for buys. As simple as that. So anything that went above this zone is good for buys even into the future. Anything above it is good for buys. As simple as that. So yeah, that's it for the method that I'm going to teach you today. I'm just trying to give you as many examples as possible so that you don't mess up. Okay, so this was the previous higher low, and then this was the higher high. Okay, so price did the same thing. We had another higher low around here, and then price came and made a new higher high above. Okay, so this is a good indication that price is willing to push higher. Okay, so anything above that zone is good for buys. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing in price right now. So price came, we tested the area, grabbed liquidity, made a continuation move to the down upside, and then when price reached this zone here, what do we want to see? We wanted to see that price makes a breakout. Okay, this is what we wanted. We want to see price make a breakout. What did it do? It made a breakout on the second attempt, but it failed to hold the momentum, so we had another push to the downside. In most of the cases, since I trade sessions, you can always look at sessions. For instance, you may find that this whole consolidation move was in the Asian. Okay, this could all just be the Asian session. Okay, Asian range. Then we have the London Open. Okay, so the London Open comes and takes out some of the Asian liquidity. Okay, and then we have a continuation move to the downside during the New York session. So these are all ideas that you can keep in mind when you're trading with this system. These are all ideas that you can keep in mind. Okay, so this was the New York, maybe this could have been the New York session. Okay, so this would have been the New York session that price came all the way down and had that massive push to the downside. Okay, so this could have been again Asian range. We have an Asian range around here, and you know that anything above the Asian range is good for buys. So anything that went above the Asian range was very good for buys. So we could have taken your buy entries here, and then this was the London. Again, you wait. Okay, you wait. So if this was the London, this whole move to the upside here was the London session. All you wanted to do is wait for price to break underneath the previous higher low. So if you go for market structure, what do you observe? This was the previous high, lower low. Okay, this was the previous lower low. So anything underneath that level is good for sales. Okay, And if you observe also here, this could have been another good area for sales. Yeah, simple as that.